The Northeast State, after
Chaos.
Yeah, after the non-conference games, I thought, okay, maybe we've got, instead of 1A, 1B, and 1C, maybe we've got 1A and 1/2B.
Right.
But New Haven has made me look like a fool. And
Not for the first time.
No, my wife is very familiar with that scenario. But New Haven, man, what a win to come out. They were down, or they were up. Then Leo takes the lead.
Yeah.
Then they're down, and then they come out and win it. Kentrell Thomas has proven to be a big-time player on Friday night on both sides of the football.
Yeah, right. Scores the winning touchdown and then gets the clinching interception for New Haven. So I was very impressed with, like you mentioned, how they did it. Jumped ahead of a quality team in Leo. Blew the lead, which, of course, Coach Jimmy Lynn doesn't want to see. But to be able to respond, score a touchdown, and win the game late really told you a lot about New Haven. And I think that's one of those teams that maybe we kind of looked past their competition those first 2 weeks. Mississinawa was able to beat Eastbrook last week, which is a tremendous win for the Indians. So maybe we look at New Haven and saying, after we counted them out starting 0-2, saying the quality of opponents were very good, and now they're rounding into form under Coach Lynn.
Okay, they take on Norwell this week. Norwell is an improving program. Josh Gerber, I believe in his third season. Eli Riley playing well at quarterback, using the legs. We've seen him in the highlights. How do you make sure that they don't overlook a Norwell team that is definitely on the rise?
I think the beauty of the NE8 is there's not a single team on the schedule that you can overlook. You hear coaches say, particularly in the SAC, that you can't take any opponent for granted, and that's mostly true, but you can have an off night in the SAC, and if you're playing the right team, you're going to still win by 40. I don't think you can do that in the NE8. I think you mentioned Norwell's improving, Belmont's improving, Huntington North is better, DeKalb is better. I mean, these are all
Columbia
teams.
City.
Columbia City. These are all teams getting better and better. So I think the top half of the conference, or maybe the top third, is dropping down a little bit, and that bottom third or that bottom half is rising. So I think this is a conference where 1 through 8 is as level as it can be. I think there's obviously 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, but I think that floor is a lot higher than it's been the last couple years.
The gap is definitely closed. East Noble at Leo is the really big game in the Northeast 8. How do you see that playing out? And then kind of how do you stack up the top 2 or 3 teams in this conference?
It's difficult because every week we kind of switch it around. And looking at who the best team this week is in the NE8, it's East Noble, but that could quickly change on Friday night. Leo's sitting there 2-2. New Haven hasn't had to play either one of them yet. So, of course, other than last week with Leo. So, it's still, we're trying to figure out the hierarchy. Then you have Columbia City, who still has not played any of those quote unquote big 3 yet, but starting next week they will. So maybe that is a team that can show out in the next couple weeks.
What is it about East Noble? Because we talked ad nauseum for years about Andrew McCormick, and he obviously controlled the offense. Everything kind of went through him. But Bailey Parker's come in and done a nice job. Caden Harshberger has run the ball well, and they've played well defensively. That side of the football maybe doesn't get a lot of credit because in years past we've talked so much about what the East Noble offense could generate.
Yeah, Caden Harshberger has been tremendous on the ground. He's the leading receiver for Bailey Parker. But it's the mark of a good team and a well-coached team when you're winning in different ways than you did before. We were used to Andrew McCormick and that offense putting up 35 a game the last couple of years and winning games like that. This team wins in a different way in terms of being smart defensively, getting stops, turnovers, opportunistic offense. It's not the gaudy numbers that we've seen offensively the last couple of years, but what they're doing is working.
With Leo, I mentioned it a week ago, I think. Offensively, it seems like they have the pieces, and they had to replace a lot of receivers that graduated. But you take a quarterback who's in his third year as a starter, Alex Wortman at running back, who's got a lot of experience, was an all-conference guy last season. If you're Jared Sauter, how do you put more points on the board? Because you look at some of their scores and you're like, man, this isn't what I expected at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, that's why I thought last week was kind of their coming out party when they're ahead double digits, and I go, okay, here's Leo's offense rounding into form, and then New Haven was able to shut it down in the second half. So you look at AJ Restivo, who a lot of us thought was going to be the premier quarterback in the area just because of experience and what kind of year he had a year ago. But I think we underestimated what he had at receiver the last couple of years, particularly last year. And that security blanket that AJ had with guys like Grohovac and Trent Bonner and those guys that he could throw to last year, you take those away, and I think he's still trying to work with a new core of wide receivers. It's taken a little bit longer than anticipated.
We've got Belmont and Huntington North in this conference. I think that will be an interesting relatively even matchup. Same thing with Columbia City at DeKalb. I think that'll be an interesting matchup, being on the road, and Columbia City obviously knows going into the gauntlet of the back end of the schedule, that's a game that they have to win.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of this conference this year. If either of those four teams wins, I'm not surprised at all. And I think that adds a level of interesting kind of, format in this conference is 1 through 8. Like we said, if 8 went out and beat 1 on Friday or next Friday, I really wouldn't be shocked. It's a really level playing field in that conference.